Environmental endeavors have been the most visible aspect of businesses looking to improve their ESG criteria. But companies are now looking to enhance the S, or social standards, of their operations, according to Lydie Hudson, Credit Suisse's CEO of Sustainability, Research and Investment Solutions. I recently caught up with Hudson and I asked her about these shifting trends.
The pandemic unveiled so many of the challenges that we see around social topics. And you're absolutely right that environmental topics were at the forefront for a variety of very good and important reasons. But since last summer, we really saw social come up the radar screen. And this is a bit complicated because there are fewer investable opportunities in social. There were many more ideas and ways to activate your investments towards the energy transition, for example. But increasingly, we're seeing ways to actually engage on topics of health and well-being and other social topics. And really at the heart of this, though, is measuring progress and having disclosure and standards where you can understand what social means and how corporates, how issuers are actually grading themselves on social topics. And this is a space that we've been very resolute in believing that this is going to continue to mature over time. I mean, you're seeing even NASDAQ requesting a certain amount of diverse board seats on the boards that are listed with them. There are examples of where disclosure standards, regulatory standards, and employee and kind of NGO activism are basically creating a foundation of disclosure, whether it's through SASB or in the climate space, it's TCFD, but where people can actually relate how corporates are doing on a number of topics beyond just environment. And we think that's incredibly important and very useful. And then you get to have a sense of materiality as well. So really, how are issuers engaging on topics of social? And then how can you relate those across the industry in which they're operating in?
It's really interesting what you're saying there, because it feels as though measuring the environmental impact is a lot easier to put in numbers than, say, the S part of ESG. Can you give us a tangible example of how, say, Credit Suisse would go about setting an actual metric for the footprint it's going to have as it pertains to the S?
Sure. So in social, you can talk about the number of diverse employees you have. And in general, that has been around gender for the longest period of time. But increasingly, you're seeing other demographic categories be publicly disclosed. And that is a step that we took last year. And it's quite complex as you get into self-disclosure and what employees' information can be shared publicly. But we believe that it was important to not only have actual disclosure of what our current footprint looks like, but also the targets that we are aspiring for. And so not just having the baseline benchmark data, but also what does good look like and what is your ambition.